And welcome back to the stage, Ms. Fanny Sparkins!
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. How many of you got to sign up? Who's going to be on the stage next fall? I know you guys have stuff to talk about. Hi, my dear friend down there. There's Miss Honey Touche, ladies and gentlemen, right there in the front row in the leopard print. You know, you guys, this is a lot of fun, and we're so happy that you're here. We couldn't have done it without our good friends at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. So big thank you to the museum for having us, right? Yes. And we've got Rudy at the back there. Hi, Rudy. He's doing tech back there, making sure we look and sound good here at the museum. We love you, Rudy. And Joe, is that Joe out there? He's doing the video tonight, videographer Joe. Find us on YouTube. You can watch all your favorite, relearn all the things you never knew and didn't know you wanted to know about poop smoothies. So we had a really good time in the first half. You guys enjoyed that? Yes! The next half is going to be fantastic. I can't wait to get started. He's a local celebrity here at the museum. He happens to be the senior curator of archaeology here at the Museum of Nature and Science. Yeah, that's big stuff right there. But tonight he is humbling himself in the shadow of a truly great mind. Okay, tonight comedians can really only pay homage and respect to their heroes, the greats, with a proper roast. What do you guys think about that? You like a little bit of a little roast. Now tonight, who better to roast than the greatest mind in Western history? He is going to be roasting Leonardo da Vinci. Oh yes. So let's bring him out to pay his respects. Tonight, let's welcome Dr. Steve Nash.
Good evening, everybody. Upstairs from us, on the third floor of this museum, is a fantastic exhibition called Leonardo da Vinci, 500 Years of Genius. And as curator of that exhibition, I've spent the better part of the last 3 years studying the man and his works. And I'm not gonna lie to you folks, that dude was absolutely amazing. He was incredible. He did it all, and he did it all really well. He was a military engineer, an urban planner, a scientist, an inventor, and so on. Amazing stuff. But I'm not gonna lie to you either, folks. That guy was so amazing, he's gotten underneath my skin. He's gotten under my skin like an STD. And I call it Leonardo-ria. And Leonardo-ria itches, folks, and it burns really bad. And the only way that I know how to get rid of Leonardo-ria is to roast that guy. So I'm gonna roast him like Don Rickles would have done back in the day, all right? So you folks, you know him, you love him, put your hands together and make some noise for Leonardo da Vinci!
Buongiorno! Buongiorno! Buonasera, signora, che bella, Dottore!
Leonardo!
It's so good to see you!
It's so good to see you.
Mwah, 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 mwah.
Leonardo, man, it's good to see you, you know, but it's been a really long time. Indeed. As of last month, man, you've been dead for 500 years.
Yeah.
And yet you look fantastic.
Yeah.
What'd you do? Invent formaldehyde as well? All right. You've been the most interesting man in the world for half a millennium. Half a millennium, folks. Remember that tuxedoed clown with Dos Equis? He doesn't hold a candle to this guy. Right? Now, historians say that Leonardo da Vinci was a stud. Some historians believe that he was a stud. A strapping Italian man. Tall, dark, and handsome, with flowing locks of long, beautiful hair.
Yeah, well, I experienced some shrinkage. It's cold down there in the ground.
So, some people say that he was a strapping Italian man. But everybody, including all of you, would agree that he was a nerd. King of the nerds, in fact.
What king?
And in fact, if glasses had been available in your time, you'd have had Coke bottle lenses an inch thick, right? Thicker than mine. But art historians wonder, and this is for real, folks, there are no good self-portraits of Leonardo da Vinci from when he was a young man. And art historians wonder why that's the case. And I think the answer is obvious. He wasn't a perfectly proportioned Vitruvian man at all. He was an odd-looking guy. He looked like a cross between Bill Nye and The Rock. With a little too much Nye and not enough rock. The dude, the guy had a pencil neck and tremendous biceps and six-pack abs and a pocket protector. But he didn't even have pockets, right? So, Leonardo, we need to get something straight with these folks because the word is out, people are talking. Because rumor is that you were gay. I think, like any good scientist, you were just curious.
Multi-curious.
Multi-curious, indeed, indeed. So Leonardo, you worked in the theater for many, many years, right? You were a set designer and a master of special effects. And you did this for a really long time. But it's a little known fact that you were also a musician and an actor and a writer, right? And he was so far ahead of his time, centuries ahead of his time, folks, that he developed an entirely new theatrical genre that still exists today.
Yes, reality entertainment.
It's true, folks. So he held a weekly pageant in the town hall, the town square in Florence, right? And in that weekly pageant, he taught young men how to dress better and more flamboyantly. And what did you call that?
Occhio strano, dire il ragazzo della scienza.
And what's that in English, folks? Queer eye for the science guy. No. All right, we have to interrupt this roast, folks, for a brief public service announcement. Thank you. We have to address the issue as to whether or not there were anti-vaxxers in the Renaissance. Okay? Bubonic plague arrived in Europe in the 14th century from Russia. Thanks, Putin. Within 3 years of its arrival in Europe, 30% of the population was dead. 3 years, 30%. All the hipsters in Denver, gone in 3 years, right? A second wave of bubonic plague arrived in Florence in the 15th century. And then when that wave hit, 50% of the population died. So vegans in Boulder, gone in 3 years. But that was Leonardo's hometown. And that was during his lifetime. And so he lived through that second wave of plague. So Leonardo, if you and your friends knew that a vaccine was available, you would have done whatever you could to get your hands on a dose, wouldn't you? And if you had gotten your hands on a dose, you would have chugged it like a shot of Jägermeister at a frat party. Right?
Jägermeister?
Yeah, booze, vino.
Vino, hey.
So coming back to the question of were there anti-vaxxers in the Renaissance, of course there were. And they all died. And we have a term for that, folks. It's called natural selection. And it works. Get those people vaccinated, okay? All right. Coming back to my good friend Leonardo da Vinci over here. This guy painted two of the world's masterpieces, two of the best paintings in the world. Mona Lisa and The Last Supper. Now, personally, I thought Mona Lisa was a great name for a porn star. So I Googled it, and she's from Brooklyn. And I went straight down to HR. Now, up in the exhibit, you'll see, through multispectral analysis, that one of Leonardo's hallmarks, one of the things that made him great, was that he revised his paintings many, many times. And the multispectral analysis of the Mona Lisa reveals that she's lying on top of two women. All you got to do is Google Mona Lisa threesome, and you'll see that.
But don't do it at work.
Don't do it at work. Now, Leonardo, it took you 10 years, man. 10 years to perfect the lips and the smile of the Mona Lisa, right? And that's truly amazing. But it's even more remarkable when we remember that it took Meg Ryan 30 minutes to ruin her lips and smile. Oh, I'm sorry, okay. All right. How about The Last Supper, folks? You all know The Last Supper, but let's review it real quick, right? It's a fresco up on a church in Italy. And in this painting, in this fresco, Leonardo supposedly painted Jesus standing over 12 disciples. They're at dinner, there's a table, there's food there, and there's some commotion going on because Jesus has just announced that one of his disciples will betray him that night 3 times. Now, Leonardo, you and I both know that story is bunk, right? That's what the Catholic Church wants us to believe. But we have 3 lines of scientific evidence to prove that that's not what's happening in that painting at all. The first line of evidence is astronomical. It's clear as day.
I see what you did there.
It's clear as day, folks. The sun is coming in from the east. It's morning time. It's not supper time at all. The second line of evidence is social. We never, ever put 13 people on the same side of a table during a dinner party. And the only time that we ever come close to that is at the United States Supreme Court, where it's the job of 2 justices to make sure that Clarence Thomas doesn't fall asleep. Okay? And the third line of evidence, my friend, is technical. That multispectral analysis that I told you about clearly reveals, clearly demonstrates that the table was added to the Last Supper decades later by a hand that's nowhere near as talented as his. So, the table is quite literally a cover-up. And the question is, why? What was the Catholic Church trying to hide? What did this guy do? So, we have to go back into history to figure this out, folks. Now, my good friend here, Leonardo, painted the Last Supper in the 1490s. He was already in his 40s, and the church had been hassling him for 3 decades. 3 decades, and he was sick of it. So he decided to toy with their sensibilities. So, I'm here to tell you now, it's not a coincidence, folks, that coffee arrived in Italy in the 1490s as well. That fine commodity from Ethiopia, that delicious beverage, arrived in Italy at the same time this guy is painting the Last Supper. So what's really going on here? Remember, it's morning time. Jesus is chairing a breakfast meeting of the disciples at the Santa Maria del Grazie Church in Milan. Everything's going fine. The catering department is fantastic. They bought in bran muffins and tons of coffee. So Jesus is chairing the meeting, right? And he calls on the membership committee to give its report. And John the Baptist stands up and reports that numbers are down. So Jesus gets irritated. And then he calls on the finance committee to make its report. And Matthew stands up and reports that they're having problems with money changers. And Jesus was an ill-tempered guy, so he got even madder. And then finally, he called on the personnel committee, and Peter stood up and reported ongoing problems with Judas. The man lacked empathy, he didn't behave professionally, and he lied more than Donald Trump. Right? So by then, Jesus is furious, and as chair of the meeting, he decides to cancel the bio break. Right? He cancels the bio break. And so they've got to go through the whole agenda. They've got to figure out what happened, they've got to figure out the logistics on the bake sale, and they've got to figure out the logistics on the bingo night, and they got to do new business. And so when Jesus finally adjourned the meeting, all 12 of those disciples plus Jesus, 13 guys, had to go to the bathroom at the same time. What Jesus forgot was that the bathroom at the Santa Maria del Grazie Church only had 12 seats in it. So those guys make a beeline for the loo. They skip to the loo. They make a beeline for the can, and they get down there, and they have to play an impromptu game of musical chairs. And Jesus could walk on water, but he wasn't nimble or quick. He lost that game of musical chairs. It's the only reason he is still standing in the Last Supper. So Leonardo, there was no betrayal at all, was there? There was just good-natured competition. Leonardo, you didn't paint the Last Supper, did you?
No.
No, you painted the first Game of Thrones. That's Michael Parker playing Leonardo da Vinci, folks.
Ciao, baby. Come here. Ciao. Ciao.
Let's hear it again for Dr. Steve Nash and Leonardo da Vinci, huh?
Hey, baby.
He's a pretty good sport. Thank you, Leo. Thanks for coming out tonight. My goodness, that was quite the trek all the way from his mausoleum or wherever he's interred. He's adorable. He's really nice backstage. He's probably now my first favorite Leo, okay? Right after Leonardo DiCaprio, of course. Oh, he's not here tonight. Never mind. So now let's get another gal out here, shall we? See one of our ladies? Okay, now this next gal, she is a biochemist with a degree from the Colorado School of Mines. Yes! Right here, Golden Girl. Now, she has had different jobs doing amazing things, but one of the most delicious sounding jobs that I could really get on board with here, she was the head quality control for Dry Dock Brewing. Hey, you guys like you like a little apricot blonde, you know, a little vanilla. She's got all the ingredients that she knows, and she gets to quality control that, which means that she gets drunk whenever she wants, ladies and gentlemen. It's fantastic. But she spends a lot of her time trying to control hops, warts, and nerds, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome Miss Frances Richardson.
Hi guys, my name's Fran, and for a brief blip in time, I got to live the millennial dream, working at a microbrewery and living with my parents. I know, it only goes downhill from there. But in all seriousness, my job at the microbrewery was working as the head of quality control. So to understand what it is that I do on a daily basis, it helps to go back to the foundations of beer. So craft beer has 5 ingredients. We've got water, barley, hops, yeast, and pretentiousness. The basic recipe for any beer is pretty simple. First, you're just gonna boil your barley in water until you get a really thick, sugary, very enticingly named liquid called wort. Then you're gonna add hops and yeast. Now, the hops are gonna add flavor and help preserve your beer, and the yeast are gonna convert all of your sugar into alcohol. So the basic recipe is pretty simple, like I said, but if you screw up any of the foundational elements, you're gonna set yourself up for really bad tasting beer, otherwise known as homebrew. So I like to think of the ingredients in beer as kind of like the people that I encounter during group projects in school. So water is kind of like the science nerd that's going to end up completing about 90% of your final product with just a little bit of unnecessary chemistry along the way. Barley is the Lori Laughlin rich kid who, so long as his parents have made a sizable donation, he's going to cruise you through to a passable product no matter what you do. Finally, hops are the stoner kid. I mean, come on, like they're basically weed's first cousin. And you're specifically only gonna give them one small task to do and still find yourself just overwhelmed by their smell like hours after they've left. Finally, yeast is the kid that gets to take what everyone else has done and try to figure out how the hell they're gonna make it a cohesive thing. So if you've ever had this role on a group project, you kind of know how it goes. If you've had really awesome team members, you take what they've got, you make a couple changes here and there, you convert someone else's sugar into alcohol like frickin' Jesus, and everything's good to go. And if your team members suck and they give you crap, sometimes the only thing you can do is just throw up your hands and let the project burn because there's nothing you can do. Now, when that happens, that's when the quality control aspect of beer becomes really interesting. As a brewer, your #1 priority should be making sure that you keep your yeast happy. Because if you have unhappy and unhealthy yeast, you're not only going to have a hard time making alcohol, which is your #1 priority, you're also going to have a bunch of bad flavors produced in your beer. So as the head of quality control, it's my job to make sure that the brewers are keeping the yeast happy. So fermentation can be simplified as sugar in, alcohol out, but the process, but the process is actually a lot more complicated, and it produces an abundance of byproducts, 500 of which are known flavor compounds. So there's a number of ways that I can test this in my lab, but by far the easiest and most fun way to do this is to just sample each batch multiple times throughout its fermentation process to see if there are any bad flavors, and if there are, then I can correct them. This process is called sensory analysis. Now, inevitably when I say this, people go, does that mean that you get paid to drink? Yeah. I do. Guys, I'm a professional alcoholic. But it's not as nice as you think, because I only get paid to drink crap beer. So when you do sensory training, you start out by focusing on all the flavors that will tell you when something's wrong with your beer, and none of them taste good. So when you do sensory, you find a beer that's as least flavorful as possible. They're both currently in an advertising war. I don't know if you've seen the billboards around town. And so you take this beer and then you decarbonate it, so you make it flat, which is extra yummy. You spike it with the compound that you want to practice, and then you take a sip and you go, yeah, okay, they were not lying about this tasting like baby vomit. And when you first try the flavors, you have to do them in really concentrated amounts, because you have to get practice at being able to differentiate them from the beer that you're drinking. And as you can probably guess, the more concentrated the flavor, the worse it tastes. So for instance, there's a really common off flavor called diacetyl, and its presence just tells you that somewhere along the way, your yeasts have stopped doing their job and stopped fermenting. And in really low concentrations, it kind of tastes like butterscotch, which is not that bad, but as it gets more concentrated, it gets progressively more buttery, starting out somewhere at popcorn Jelly Belly and moving all the way over to you just opening your mouth directly beneath the dispenser at a movie theater and just pouring butter directly into your mouth while everyone loses respect for you. Now, the goal for sensory training is for you to develop your own associations for the flavors, so that even if they're present in low concentrations, you can instantly have a vivid recall to whatever it is that you just tasted. And when you do sensory training with other people in the room, they'll make you sit in silence after you have your first sip so that you can think of your own memories. And I find this to be a very self-conscious process, because sometimes you just can't think of anything. And you look around the room and you see other people starting to nod their heads like they recognize it. And you start to panic. And you start to think shit, am I not living my life to the fullest that I don't recognize the flavor of wet goat? It's a real flavor. Other times, you're self-conscious because you've just had a very vivid flashback to the time that you thought you could handle eating all of those deviled eggs, only to make a grown man cry from the smell of your farts. So yeah, I do get paid to drink, but guys, I am in a prison of my worst smelling memories. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Fran Richardson! Oh, man. Okay, she took some of the mystique out of that job, okay? Put some of the stink right back into it. What? Oh, Fran. Damn, these guys are funny. I invite you to stay afterwards and chat with them a little bit and find out a little more about their adventures, because it's aromatic, it's a good time. So we have a gentleman coming out next who is, he's a doctoral candidate in information technology, computer security. He even is behind some of those security features where they ask you to click all the dots that are crosswalks or maybe, street signs, storefronts, things like that, so that you can get in and finally buy that goddamn ticket to your favorite concert, only to find out they've sold out, so you don't get. No, he's the man to help us with this. He's gonna help get rid of hackers. He's gonna make it so that when it's time to sign up for that Dolly Parton ticket, you remember how long I waited in that goddamn queue? I finally got my ticket, and I know it's because of guys like him. Yes, keeping the internet safe for all of us and for all man and womankind. Are you ready to meet my friend? Here he is, Mr. Gregory Cusack. Hi.
Hi everyone, my name is Greg Cusack. Thank you for the introduction. I am a PhD student at CU Boulder, and I'm here to give you a quick insight into the world of computer hacking and security, okay? And so I'm basically like a cybersecurity ninja, according to my mom. So you actually better pay attention, because if I see you dozing off, don't think I won't hack you. Okay? I'm 0% above that level of pettiness. Speaking of which, this guy over here, he gave me a weird look when I walked in. And you know what? I didn't really appreciate that. And so while you've been laughing at these great jokes, he's been doing a great job laughing, I've been in the back. I've been coding away, hacking, beep, boop, beep. You're hacked now. He's hacked. And you know what I found? This guy bought 16 Himalayan black bear sculptures off of eBay last week. Could have gotten free shipping on Amazon. Jeez. Okay, we got to talk about hacking here. We've seen a lot of attacks in the news recently. We saw, of course, everybody's seen the Equifax breach. I mean, basically, your information is the Declaration of Independence. The hackers are Nick Cage. They just stole it, okay? And we saw the Ashley Madison data leak. That one's super fun. We all love that. Ashley Madison's a website that helps married people cheat on their spouses with other married people. Great stuff. And then we've also seen a lot of vulnerabilities in IoT technologies, IoT devices. And IoT is Internet of Things. So your Samsung smart fridge, that's IoT. Your Nest thermostat, that's IoT. And one such device that was found to be very vulnerable were IoT-enabled vibrators. Who thought that was a good idea? Okay, we were in the meeting here, there's a guy and he's like, that very public thing that billions of people access every day? Let's connect our sex toys to it. Hell yeah. No, but seriously, this company, it's like Vibrotismo or something. It was found that a bunch of their sex toys, their vibrators, their dildos, basically could be taken control of remotely by anybody. Look. I'm not a huge dildo guy. Small dildo guy. But Internet of Dildos, that sounds bad. Okay. What are companies doing about this, right? We've seen all this stuff happening. How are they actually being proactive to protect your data? Well, one thing they're doing, among other things, is they're putting these massive boxes in front of their networks, okay? And what's inside these boxes are neural networks, okay? And neural networks, basically, in this case, their goal is to just differentiate between benign internet traffic, and malicious internet traffic. So in the case of Instagram, the neural network would learn what scrolling looks like, what uploading looks like, and then anything that deviates from that is considered malicious, okay? And so this is basically how it works for neural networks. But to really understand neural networks, I'm going to explain it to you. We get to talk about dogs. So this is like the highlight of the show right here. My set, the rest of it, no, this is my set is the worst part of the show, but the rest of people, much better. So we get to learn about dogs. So neural networks learn how they learn is very similar to how babies learn about dogs. And so we have cute little Bob. He's 2 years old. He's in the park with his parents, and they're having a great time. Bob's getting his tan on. He's got Coachella 2020 coming up. Probably gonna get skin cancer when he's older. Worth it. And so Bob's parents point out dogs to him in the park, and they say, "Hey, Bob, that's a dog. That's a dog. That's a dog." And Bob eventually learns specific characteristics of dogs. He says, okay, dogs have ears, snout, and they're furry. And this is great because then he can use these characteristics to help him identify other dogs in the future. And this is the same way neural networks learn, right? So we can feed them images of dogs and they learn, okay, ears, snout, furry, and then we feed them a new image of a dog and they say, hey, that's a dog. They've never seen that dog before, but they can still identify it as a dog. Okay, and this is exactly, like I mentioned, how neural networks work. They learn the characteristics of benign traffic, and then anything that doesn't have those characteristics is considered malicious or at least flagged. Okay, we have an issue here though. And so we're gonna go back to Bob for a second. Okay, so Bob, 2 years old, and he's, in his backyard, for some reason, unsupervised. I don't know, in this made-up world of Bob, his parents are completely irresponsible. His parents are in the back, his parents are gone. He's in the backyard, and he sees a wolf, okay? But he's never seen a wolf before. So he's like, oh my God, what is this animal? And he goes, okay, ears, snout, furry, oh my God. 14 out of 10 doggo, gonna go pet. And so he does, but then he dies, right? Because it's a wolf. No, he's just now permanently disabled. But the point here is that neural networks are also vulnerable to this attack. And I say attack here because there are people out here actively trying to make wolves look like dogs. Okay, what does that mean? And why does it matter? Think about a self-driving car. Self-driving cars have neural networks in them, and they use them to identify things around them, like stop signs, right? And for the most part, this actually works really well. In the general case, sees a stop sign, neural network tells the car to stop, great. But then we have some dickhead, Chad, who comes along, and he's like, you know what, fuck this car, and he puts a little sticker on the stop sign. Tiny little sticker, and as a human, we're like, oh, that's a stop sign with a sticker on it. Okay, we'll stop. But neural networks don't exactly work how our brains work fully, and it will look at the stop sign, and it may say, hey, that stop sign with that sticker, oh, that's a speed limit sign. And it just blasts through the intersection. And, I mean, could you imagine if there was like a dog crossing the street right there? Like that's why there's so much research going into this. We gotta save the dogs, okay? And so basically the idea is that there's a lot of research. A lot of the research I do is how do we protect you? How do we protect the Instagram influencer from getting hacked and getting their information stolen in the face of adversaries who know these neural networks exist and who are actively trying to bypass them? So if you take two things away from this, one is neural networks kind of learn how babies learn about dogs. And number two, for the love of God, do not connect your sex toys to the internet. Thank you very much.
Greg Cusack, everybody! Greg Cusack. He's the cute Cusack brother, isn't he? Yeah. Oh my God, did you know? Did you know that about your dildo? And that God, it gets better Wi-Fi than my phone, I guess. That's fantastic. Who knew? Wow. All right, you guys, I've got one more lady left to bring out here, and then of course we'll have to have the fact checking at the very end. We have a resident fact checker because this is not fake news out here. This is science. Science, you guys. So we have this gal right here coming out for you. Are you ready to meet her? Oh, wow. She's got her master's degree in zoo and aquarium management. Doesn't that sound fun? That sounds really fun. And she happens to be the lead events ambassador at the Butterfly Pavilion. You guys, you love that place. It's the nation's only accredited invertebrate zoo. Did you know that? Right here, we have it. That sounds fun, right? That sounds beautiful and fabulous, like gorgeous butterflies and everything flying around, just flowers and all that. Well, I'll have to say about this lady, she's the only person we know who has been on the receiving end of an octopus hickey, ladies and gentlemen. That is hers. She's lucky that she has the adventure she does. She wants to tell you all about him. Are you ready to meet this gal? Let's bring her out here. There's Miss Katie Barber.
Hey guys, how's it going? How's everybody everybody doing? Feeling good? Please tell me you're all drunk. This will be so much funnier. Perfect. Well, as Fanny said, my name is Katie, and I am here today to talk about octopus hickeys, poison versus venom, and elephant yoga. I am an animal behaviorist, and I do work at Butterfly Pavilion, which is the only Association of Zoos and Aquariums, or AZA, accredited standalone invertebrate zoo in the world. Yeah, this means that I work in a building full of spineless animals. Basically, Westminster's very own United States Capitol building. So AZA accredits facilities that meet the highest standards of animal welfare, conservation initiatives, and public education, with a current focus on animal behavior. For my master's, I studied cognitive enrichment, which means I spent my time creating ways to make it nearly impossible for my study subjects to eat. If I had been working with humans, I tell you what, it would have been easy. I would have simply given them lobster tails and no knives. Large carnivores are almost as easy. Some zoos have changed their programs to include carcass feedings, which are exactly what they sound like. A reenactment of every interaction between Von Miller and Tom Brady. Sorry to the Patriots fans. Seriously though, the animals are fed pieces of a carcass that have obstacles they have to work around, like hair and bones and organs, just like Casa Bonita, but with fewer gorillas. But seriously, carcass feedings, like really, 0.1 for a biologist named creativity. But no, I decided to work with octopuses. Octopuses, not pussy, by the way. Pusses, please get your minds out of the gutter. I've heard it before. They have the intelligence of 6-year-olds, 8 arms, hundreds of suckers with the dexterity of our thumb and forefinger, and the ability to fit through holes the size of a quarter. Actually, they're exactly like 6-year-olds. Oh, and did I mention they're venomous? Not poisonous, by the way, venomous. These terms are about as interchangeable as DC and Marvel. Poison is a toxin that must be ingested or absorbed. You have to bite or touch the animal. Think poison dart frogs or butterflies. Venom is a toxin that must be injected. The animal has to bite or sting you. Think snakes, spiders, or in my case, octopuses, which, let's be real, were probably created when a radioactive spider bit a snake. Don't worry though, I had one advantage. My main study subject, Taco, yes, we named him the Japanese word for octopus, 0.2 for biologist named creativity. He couldn't breathe dry air. Unfortunately, this stopped his escape attempts about as well as essential oils stopped the spread of measles. I got my very first glimpse of parenting when trying at 7 a.m. to convince Taco to stay in his tank and play with his breakfast toy rather than escape into the dryer. He couldn't breathe every time I stepped back to press record on my camera. I got my second glimpse when I went to retrieve the toy after it had been ignored for 20 minutes. Then Taco decided, no, I'm not ignoring it and it's mine. Spoiler alert, Taco won. All those arms and suckers provide a distinct advantage in tug of war, which was awkward the day Taco decided he wanted my hand instead of the toy and became all arms and hickeys like a bad date in college. Butterfly Pavilion provides mealtime enrichment for other species as well. For example, all of the tarantulas are fed live prey. In theory, this allows them to hunt for their food exactly as they would in their native habitat. In reality, they find the crickets terrifying and will climb cactuses to escape them. So why would Butterfly Pavilion go to all of this trouble for species that many consider to be unimportant, dangerous, or gross? What most people don't understand is that if the invertebrates go, our entire ecosystem collapses like the world economy in 2009. They form the support system of the entire food chain, like the big three automakers of the ecosystem. Not only do they fertilize the plants that feed the herbivores, but they become prey for larger carnivores. So just remember that the next time you assassinate an innocent spider for sharing your shower. Now, so far I've focused on creative feeding, which is one subset of cognitive enrichment. Another is behavioral husbandry. Keepers took natural behaviors and developed them into tools to help improve animal health, including things like voluntary vet care. Understandably, getting an x-ray of a giraffe hoof is much easier when the giraffe is a willing participant in the activity. Colorado's own Cheyenne Mountain Zoo is leading the way in this field. If you've never been, the most important thing to know, it's a zoo built on Cheyenne Mountain. Point 3 for biologist name creativity, y'all. Now, living on the side of the mountain does create some complications for the zoo's residents because they're basically hiking for most of their day. The elephant herd is particularly affected because of their size and the advancing arthritis of some of the more geriatric members. Unfortunately, keeping enough carfentanil, a drug 10,000 times more powerful than morphine, on hand to keep your aging elephant population high and happy is a fairly difficult undertaking. So instead, the zoo developed a pachyderm yoga program. Keepers now work with each animal to help them stretch and relax. You'll also feel like you took the carfentanil when you see a herd of geriatric elephants doing sun salutations. Other entertaining and useful trained behaviors that I've seen include a tiger presenting her hip for a vaccine in exchange for whipped cream. Ready Whip from the can, by the way. None of that Cool Whip ridiculousness. I have also seen a hyena lift his neck for a jugular blood jaw in exchange for a New York strip steak, and a sloth sit for her pregnancy ultrasounds in exchange for hibiscus flowers. Though that one's not much of a stretch. I mean, seriously, she's a sloth. Clearly, the takeaway this evening is that both humans and animals will go to great lengths to obtain their favorite food. I really hope y'all enjoyed this brief look into the behind-the-scenes world of animal behavior. Thank you and good night.
Katie Barber, everybody! Wow! Adorable! I love that! Although it does sound a little hard to keep an octopus under control. I mean, really, truly. Now tonight, before we go, we do have to do our fact checking. This is something that we don't want to send you out with information that perhaps isn't accurate. So if anything was askew or anything forgotten, we have our resident fact checker who will come back to the stage to give us the lowdown. Can we bring him out here? Let's bring him out here. Where is Dan Wufflin? Dan, come on out. Hello, sir.
All right, this is the part of the show where we issue corrections to some of the previous jokes. So Jessie said that when she went to graduate school, she never thought that she'd wear leather pants and 4-inch heels, and that's actually why I went to graduate school. And I just spent the whole time looking for bugs in some C++ code. Emily was talking about polar bears and about how they're useless. So there are charismatic megafauna, and I've been trying to become a charismatic megafauna. And so far, I've gained 45 pounds, but I also know from experience what happens if you just shove data at people, and it's that they tell you to leave. Owen talked about the chicken bucket for the placenta. It's called that because you eat chicken out of it while you're just watching the birth and just waiting. He also talked about how the ancient Egyptians thought that the placenta was your twin, and that explains why my mom always said to me that the placenta was the cute one. Taylor, one of the euphemisms for pooping she used was igniting a rectal rocket, and that's That actually just means lighting your own farts. That's not. Steve Nash talked about Leonardo da Vinci and about how he slept around a lot, and I think that's actually because he was curious, right? He was sleeping around a lot so that he could get good statistics on his analysis. For Francis, talked about beer. So pretentiousness, she mentioned it as an ingredient in craft beer. That's actually also an important ingredient in poop smoothies. She also talked about diacetyl and said that it causes beer to be taste like you're just putting your mouth below the butter thing at the movie theater. And I would like to try some of this beer. Kind of tired of getting those looks. Greg talked about the dildos with the security vulnerability, and I looked it up online, and it was the WeVibe 4 Plus. They're not like really like dildos technically. I don't think they're like vagina paper clips, sort of like. You know what I mean? For women who get off by like attaching documents. And lastly, Katie was talking about. She said Venom and Poison are like Marvel and DC, but they're actually like Marvel and an '80s hair metal. Okay.
Keeping us legitimate. You guys, thank you for being here tonight. This is Science Riot. This is something that you should do. Please come and talk to us out in front. Get information on the program. Come and join us on the stage. Big thank you to Jesse Hansen, the instructor, all of the comedians tonight. Emily Skosid, Owen Vaughn, Taylor Soderberg, Dan Wufflin. Hey, you know him, you love him. Dr. Steve Nash, Greg Cusack, Katie Barber. And I have been your MC this evening, Fanny Spankings. Thank you to the Denver Museum of Nature